According to a new Axios report, even with the pandemic, companies are performing above expectations. Of the companies that reported their 2021 quarter two finances, 88% had, quote, better than expected earnings. If they continue at this pace, it will be the highest reported growth since 2009.
While these companies thrive post-pandemic, individual workers are still struggling. As White House economics reporter Jeff Stein notes, 20 million Americans are set to lose unemployment benefits in 40 days. So obviously it's a good thing that companies are doing well. We want the economy to be healthy. I don't want to punish companies for doing well. I really don't. Maybe you do a little bit. But it is the case that workers are still struggling.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was the largest wealth heist that we have seen in a very, very long time, maybe even ever, where a lot of the money just seemed to funnel up to the top. And the fact that these companies are reporting record earnings saying, wow, it turns out we did way better than expected, that is really, really alarming to me. I mean, there's a couple of things to take away from this. And first of all, I would say that, obviously during a pandemic, a lot of the biggest were able to survive, do well, thrive, even while the mom and pop shops went under. And now with all of this stimulus money that is going out there, and they're kind of attributing a lot of this to the stimulus money and even unemployment money, which I think is really, really interesting because you've got all these big companies that are complaining right now saying, oh, we can't hire workers and it's all your fault because you kept giving them money. They're at the same time benefiting from all of that stimulus money, from that unemployment money. People, maybe they are making a little bit more than they were making waitressing or doing nails or something. And now they're spending that money. I mean, this just kind of goes to show that when you put money into people's pockets, that money will flow back at you. I mean, of course, some of these sectors are like healthcare, and we know exactly why they did well, right. Which was more unfortunate. But look, if you stick money, it just goes to show there's actually a trickle up effect when it comes to putting money in people's pockets.
Yeah. I mean, tech obviously did well because we were forced to use it by the government. We were forced to stay home for months. So, on the one hand, you and I are both critical of big tech. I think there are ways in which they made the pandemic better for a lot of us, and we were forced to rely on them because of the restrictions in place. I think a lot of my analysis is that smaller companies, mom and pop shops, whatever, they are having a harder time attracting workers. Their profit margins are a little tighter. The big guys can afford it, but they would rather beg for bailouts, industry-specific bailouts, which are the worst kind, and say, oh no, we need the government to come in and save us. Of course, they never actually do, and then they give their CEO some wonderful bonus, despite all the hardship, and that's what we see time and time again. So I don't ever want to. I like the free market. I don't want to defend these companies ever because they're always appallingly bad actors, begging the government for help that they don't need, and then not passing along any of that money to the hardest affected people who work for their firm.
And it'll be really interesting to see what happens when these 20 million Americans lose their unemployment benefits. When they have less money in their pockets and they are going back to work, I know that will be a good thing for a lot of companies that are like, okay, finally, my workers are back and I don't have to incentivize them too much. Everybody just has to have a job now, so I could just pay them scrap wages or whatever. When they do that, they'll realize there's just not as much money in their pockets, and these big companies will start losing some money. So maybe, I can hope that there will be a push by these large corporations that are making so much money to advocate for a higher minimum wage, because they understand that when these wages are raised and people have money in their pockets, they spend that money and it's better for their bottom line. So
I mean, the issue I have with with like the idea of a national minimum wage being higher is that wages are so different. The cost of living are so different in so many different parts of the country that it's just like comparing apples and oranges to where what $15 an hour gets you in one state versus another.
Well, and I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. Actually, I don't think that we need to. I do want to see the minimum wage raised just because it's due time. But on top of that, it's sort of like what we were talking, when we talk about other types of reform that needs to happen, whether it be student debt or something. We need to have a fundamental structure change when it comes to how wages are figured out, what the minimum wage is. And I personally think it should absolutely be tied to housing. whatever the housing is in your market, they need to then tie the minimum wage to whatever that is. And I think that would do two things. It would raise wages, but it would also drive down the cost of housing and rent and mortgages, home prices. That is the biggest block of a person's income. And really, you could pay somebody, theoretically, you could pay them $1 an hour as a minimum wage if rent is only $50 a month, right? I mean, then that is something you could actually do. So I agree with you on that. It needs to be a bit structured a bit differently, because what's good for someone in Kansas is not good for somebody in New York City.
Yeah. Tomorrow on Rising, Andrew Feldman and Inez Stepman are Team Rising. Plus, Stephen Donziger himself joins us to discuss his latest appeal. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our new videos. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much for being with us. Take care.
Bye-bye.